Well, some new information on a growing epidemic and a major issue in the 2016 election, and that's opioid addiction. There's a new treatment that helps eliminate cravings for the drug, and it's being used in some prison systems to treat some addicts. It doesn't come cheap, though, and it comes with a lot of questions. Without insurance, shots of Vivitrol can cost as much as $1,500 a piece. It works by blocking the opioid receptors, which means you shut them down and you end any cravings that an individual might have for at least 4 weeks per shot. Unlike some treatments for opioid abuse, like methadone, this treatment is not addictive, and while it isn't a magic bullet, there is a lower rate of relapse after treatment ends in the short term. Long term, though, there's a big question about whether or not this is the right strategy, and that's why we wanted to talk about this with our panel. Joe Shrank is an addiction expert who runs the recovery program Rebound Brooklyn, and psychotherapist Robbie Ludwig. Great to have you both, as we like to have both of your perspectives as we take in what is really the solution here. Joe, I read this story from the Associated Press earlier yesterday. We were hoping to book both of you to talk about it, and I reread the story last night after I put my kids to bed, and I couldn't help but think, because there's different addicts that are quoted in this piece, and I couldn't help to think, these aren't addicts, these are somebody's children that have gotten themselves in this horrible cycle, for whatever reason. Shouldn't we use any tool available to help them, or are there reasons not to use another substance to combat substance abuse? How do you see it?
There's absolutely no reason to not use other substances. The solution to the drug problem, or part of the solution to the drug problem, might be other drugs. It seems paradoxical, and it's counter to the culture where we're supposed to be totally abstinent. The truth is there will never be a drug-free America. That is pure and unadulterated fantasy, and it's something that needs to leave the culture. So yes, when 120 people a day drop dead of overdoses, we need to try every single possible thing that we can. If this were another disease, the CDC would be quarantining people and there would be round-the-clock coverage. So it's really an issue of marginalizing addicts.
Robbie, what do you think?
Well, I'm in agreement. It certainly makes sense, and I think there's a difference between using a drug and using a medication. It's certainly not a magic medication, because the addict still needs to be motivated. They need to show up a month later for their injection. It's not going to help them avoid people, places, and things that can certainly trigger the addiction, but it's a really good start, and the studies are very promising in terms of helping drug addicts find work and get stable and find that there is a life beyond being addicted to opioids.
Well, it was interesting, Joe. I just want to share this with our viewers. They did a control group for this, and in the control group, after 6 months, the folks that used Vivitrol had a lower rate of relapse, 43% compared to 64%. So it's not a 0% chance of relapse. It's just a lower percent.
No, it's not a 0%.
And let me just read this one last thing. It says a year later, relapse rates look the same in the two groups. And I thought that was sort of an interesting fact that we should talk about whether or not it works.
Well, it does work.
Well, it does work.
Reducing the euphoria. It certainly does work in that regard, and you have to be careful about not giving it to somebody who is currently using opioids, because that could create a very dangerous withdrawal. But whenever you're treating addiction, it's always about treating the cravings, but also creating a life where a person wants to do better and finds ways to like themselves and be a part of life in a way that's purposeful.
Let me ask Joe, in your work, Joe, does it give people the respite that they need to try to get out of the cycle?
It does. What it does is it helps people, it helps people get a running start at tackling their addiction. The same way that obesity can be helped by bariatric surgery, but you definitely have to change your behavior and your eating habits and nutrition. This, again, speaks to the marginalization of addicts. When people have a chronic condition, if they have a leukemia, if they have diabetes, their checkups go on for 5 years. If you had cancer and you're in remission, they're going to continue to check you up. They're not going to say in a year, your cancer's back, you failed. And so I think that that's really the situation, is that we need to think of addiction not as a problem that is solved, or that there is an end game, but we need to think of it as we can manage it, we can manage a chronic condition for the lifespan of somebody, but they won't be able to do it without help. And Patrick Kennedy always says we need a checkup from the neck up, which I don't like rhyme or corny things, but it's very It's very telling.
It is telling. I mean, and it probably applies to all of us. I mean, for sure. Robbie, I'm curious about the bottom line for all of this. There is a cost to it. I mean, it does cost $1,500, $1,000 more or less without insurance. And one of the reasons why it's being used in the prison system is that we're seeing repeat offenders come back to prison, and then we're paying for them to be in prison. That could be $25,000. It could be $50,000 a year. So that's why this is being thought of as a solution. You know, if you could help people get, again, out of the cycle, then they don't come back, and we're not continuing this great expense that we also have as well. But the question is about who should be paying for it.
Right. I mean, that's always the question, and maybe if we're lucky, this drug won't be as expensive moving into the future. But the advantage of an injectable for somebody who is addicted is they can't decide one day not to take it and then, you know, go back to their addictive ways, which can happen if you are taking something in pill form. You can take it one day and then decide not to take it the next day. So when it comes to advancing human lives, I'm all for it. I don't know if we could put a cost to it. It's definitely less expensive than prison, so that's the upside.
Well, that's true. Joe, just a quick final thought, because one of the criticisms of this company that creates the drug Vivitrol is that they were a little too pushy, maybe a little too overselling the results, and that's been some of the criticism. I'm just curious, in your personal experience, have you seen that? Do you think that's the case, or are they the only game in town?
Well, I think that we're always looking for the magic solution to addiction, and there isn't one. You know, we need to invest in longer-term solutions. I'm very happy to be on the same page with Robbie. Sometimes we're not.
No, it's nice.
But, yeah, no, it's not. But I agree. If you like the cost, that's right. If you like the cost of Vivitrol, you'll love the cost of incarceration, and it just doesn't make any sense. The truth is, there is a solution to this, and people don't like it. The solution is appropriate taxation for intoxicating substances to pay for the byproduct of intoxicating substances. So in other words, we could have drop-in clinics in every city in America if we taxed alcohol appropriately.
Well, that leads us to another interesting debate. Way to go, Joe. I'm sure there'll be something that you guys can debate on in the future.
Next time.
Anytime.
Okay,
generally, anytime. Merit pod, alcohol, whatever.
I can't wait. Joe, Robbie, thank you very much. Great to have you both.